It looks like we are live. And if we are live, that means we are back with another episode of our live taping of our snobOS show. And we always start with the snobOS for our Patreon. So we're going to get right into the show and do a little catch up. So, Nika, how you've been doing since this past week?
Been a little bit busy. Got a couple of irons in the fire that I'm trying to manage. So, keeping busy. So that's good. And I started with a new golf group earlier this month, and we had our first session on Sunday, and we went out to this really beautiful golf course in Alpharetta. We have 5 different courses that we can choose from to play at. And so that's the one I went to. And surprisingly enough, it was on a Sunday. Our session was at like 10. I got there at like maybe 9:45-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And because, you have to be on time or whatever, and you have to get to your get and
Well,
start.
well, you ain't get your money's worth, right? I'm assuming you're paying
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, absolutely. So I get in. I'm walking down to where you get your golf carts, and who do I run into other than Jerome the Bus Bettis?
Oh, nice.
I was like, oh, that's nice, and
Mm-hmm.
he was kind of cool. We were all kind of waiting to get our carts or whatever, a little
Chit chat.
chit chat, cool. But the thing is, I was expecting for a Sunday golf time for it to be, like super busy because people like to get in early,
Mhm.
especially on a Sunday before it gets too hot. But no, it wasn't too many other people there. So I was like a little bit surprised by that. But people were kind of, I'm assuming maybe some people got there like at 8
Mhm.
and, kind of hit early, got out on the course early. But other than that to say, beautiful course. Had a really good time. My swing has always been pretty good,
Mhm.
but I couldn't quite, hit the ball where I was intended to go. I heard it's all about the hips and all that kind of stuff, but it still wouldn't work. But the golf pro that I was working with, it was my grip. And all I had to do was like turn like my hand, like my anchor hand, like in like a quarter of an inch. And
Mhm.
that solved the problem. So
Mhm.
excited about that because I was hitting them far and I was hitting them where, I wanted them to go. But the thing is, because I had finally gotten in the groove and finally figured out what my issue was, I think I went a little bit too hard because the next couple
Oh,
days,
man. Sore.
a girl was sore. And the funny thing is, that now the soreness is gone, it's like almost like a burning sensation. I'm assuming like, circulation or whatever, but it was like really, I was like, I really kind of overdid it. But after that, went to some brunch and I finally got to see Sinners. I was trying to see it at an IMAX theater, but
Mhm.
all the times that worked for me, the IMAX theaters were all sold out. And I
Mhm.
was like, well, dang. And
Mhm.
I was like, well, I guess I better just kind of get in where I can fit in because they stopped showing it in IMAX today because Marvel's new movie Thunderbolt starts today, and that's IMAX. So you can still see it in the theaters, but you just can't see it in IMAX
Y
because
yeah.
Thunderbolts is taking those screens. But
Yeah, we couldn't see it in IMAX either because all of the, available seats was like the first 2 rows,
mhm.
and everything else was taken, so we didn't see it in IMAX, we saw it in that Sony 70 millimeter, which is kinda like IMAX Lite,
Mhm.
but, didn't see it in full IMAX.
Mhm.
Um, but I wasn't aware that it was only gonna be, in IMAX for a limited amount of time. I thought as long as the theaters wanted to run it, but I
Mm-mm.
guess the theaters would,
They want to get that Marvel money, so they're
mhm,
like, "Yeah, we're gonna give you a little boot." But I saw some images. So it was like one theater that showed it in how it was shot in the 70 millimeter IMAX.
mhm,
And what surprised me the most was that the dress that Mary wore in my screening, it looked like it was a cream color, but it was
mhm,
actually a blush pink.
mhm.
And I was like, it's so interesting how something that small could be
Detail,
so
yeah.
different.
Mhm,
And then it made me think, it's like, what are the things that I missed that could have been like, more eye popping had I seen it that way. But um, I went on, like I said, I went Sunday, and theaters were still full. Theaters were still packed. I looked at several different showings, and they were all pretty much, sold out. I was able to get a good seat, but yeah, it's still going strong, even though they were trying to make it a dud. But yeah, they don't want to give us credit for the third, even though it
Yeah,
was a thing. But
trying so hard. I don't
so
understand
hard.
between Sinners and Shador Sanders. It's like they
It's
are
like
trying
so
super
hard.
hard not to give us credit, not to
Yeah.
give us acknowledge, not to acknowledge, not to say, "Yeah, you know what? Good job." I mean, cuz
Good job.
you
That
know
was
what?
nice. I
Right.
enjoyed that.
They can't even do that. It's a
No.
but it's like, man, come on, am I trying to hear that? We know what time it is.
Yeah. But even I saw some black kind of podcaster. They were like, it was good, but y'all just hold up. Y'all just trying to make it too much. Y'all just trying to do too much. I'm like, bro, you really, you
Mhm.
want to jump on, that's the bandwagon you want to jump on. You just
Well,
can't say this is dope, this is great, I really enjoyed it. You have to say
so
I liked it, but y'all are doing too much behind it.
so you
It's not like
gotta
it's the Godfather or whatever. I'm
you
like,
gotta take that with a grain of salt
yeah,
because I have noticed that people increasingly will say anything
to go
for some
viral.
views, not
Yeah,
to go viral views, whatever. And people have learned being contrarian,
yeah,
being other side of the fence, being devil's advocate, or just like a crazy hot take. Like
yeah.
clearly you thought this up just to get people to lash out, So you gotta be careful with some of
Yeah,
those
that's
people.
true. And it,
Yeah.
even in the next thing we're going to talk about, it was some of that going on in this. And I'm just like, bro, really? Is this what you're going to put your name behind?
Yep, yep, yep. So let's get into it. There was a
Yeah.
couple things I wanted to talk about. The
Hmm.
NBA finals
Hmm.
have been super interesting. There's only like one or two. The Atlanta Hawks got bumped out of the play-in
Playing.
tournament, so they didn't get into the official playoffs. But outside of them, outside of Orlando, bless their hearts,
Mm.
outside of
The
Memphis,
Heat.
yeah, the Heat, Memphis,
Ooh,
bless your hearts. But
bless your
this,
sweet little hearts.
yeah, there's some teams that got bounced pretty early and
And pretty bad.
pretty convincingly.
Yeah.
But that leaves a couple of good series that
Hmm.
I've been connected to, or just been interested in. Of course, the
Hmm.
first one, since I'm from Indiana, the Pacers advance 4-1. I think it was
Hmm.
4-1
Yeah, it was 4-1.
against Giannis Antetokounmpo, Damian Lillard, who was injured, and the Milwaukee
ACL.
Bucks, who were not the previous years, but in the past 2 years, I think they won a
2 years.
championship
I think it was two.
because Milwaukee won and then the Celtics won. It was Golden State, Milwaukee, and then the Celtics,
Yeah,
who
I
are
think
the
that's right. Yeah.
defending champs. So, like, they recently just won a championship, and for the Pacers to move past them in the playoffs, I was pretty hyped.
Yeah, that's
Um,
your team.
Right, right, right. Another one is the Pistons. They played last night and they were able to win their game against the Knicks to force a game six.
Controversially.
Right. Yeah, 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 yeah. There's a lot going on in that game, you know. But Pistons stay alive. They're one of the
Yeah.
few teams that have managed to that them in Denver, but Denver don't count.
Yeah.
They're one of
Yeah.
the low teams. Pistons one of the few teams that's on the low rankings
Yeah.
that have pushed a game six. Like I mentioned, Orlando couldn't do it. Like I mentioned, Memphis couldn't do it. Like you mentioned, the Heat couldn't do it. Pistons is like the one of the last teams is like hanging in there. So that's a
Mhm.
pretty interesting series to watch. Golden State going up 3-1 on Houston. Again, this
Yeah.
is interesting because they have bad blood, so
Yeah.
they've been tussling and
And
altercations.
Dylan Brooks is just gross. He's just been gross for
Yeah,
the longest
yeah.
time.
He's
Ugh.
trying to play that character,
Yeah.
and he doesn't have enough.
He's gonna run up on the wrong one.
It's not that. Well, I'm gonna say it's not that. It's also that, but it's also his skill
Doesn't
doesn't
back
back
up.
up his
Yeah.
junk. So people kind of shrug it off unless he's being super irritating. Then they
Yeah.
respond. But most of the time, they just smile and just beat him.
Nat him away because it's like
Right.
here. This is the only thing you got is this whole bravado. So you
Yeah.
know what?
If
You
he was
you have it,
scoring,
buddy.
yeah, if he was scoring 20 plus points consistently,
Yeah.
then people would be like, all right, we need to pay attention to him. But people was like, man, if you don't go on somewhere,
Right. Sit down.
Patrick Beverly was the same. It's like, all right, bro, we got it.
Whatevs.
So
Whatevs.
that's interesting to see Golden State go up 3-1 on Houston because Houston had the number two
Hmm.
what do you call it?
Golden State had to play in
Yes, Golden State had to play in. And Houston had the number two, what do you call it? Rank? It's not rank.
seed.
Yes, the number two seed because it based on record. I think they had the best
Hmm.
record after Oklahoma, So for Golden State to be a play-in and they're actually up 3-1 on the number two seed is pretty interesting. On top
Yep.
of the fact that now they got Jimmy Butler. Without Jimmy Butler, they probably couldn't have made it to the play-in, and now they're
Yeah.
actually doing well in the playoffs with him on the team. So definitely at 180 as far as trades are concerned for Golden State. And then finally, your Lakers. I think they play tonight. Do they play tonight?
I don't even know. I don't care.
They face elimination against Minnesota. Anthony Edwards in Minnesota, who's been playing lights
this
out.
this series was not supposed to go this way.
Right.
Nobody
Especially
saw it going this way.
right. Especially after they acquired Luka Doncic.
Luca.
And it's not even close. It's like they're about to get
Mm-mm.
bumped 4 games to 1.
1. Yeah. Like,
People
what
kind
the
of
hell, man?
expected Dallas to like not produce
Mm,
because again they lost Luca and Anthony Davis after he was acquired got injured. So he was
mhm.
injured like a month or two. So we kind of figured that they weren't gonna go nowhere, but everybody just assumed. Everybody just assumed. The whole what the your boy Shannon Sharp, the popular thing, Lakers in 5. They gonna get beat in 4 if they stop playing.
Mm, 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 mm.
So as a Lakers fan, what are your thoughts?
I, they do play tonight. They play at 10, of course, there on the West Coast. I think they could have the potential to try and buck up, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
and have a decent showing outside of LeBron pulling a Herculean effort.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, bro, because this is just feeding Ant Edwards
Mm-hmm.
like bat. I mean, this is just like
Mm-hmm.
powering this kid up. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just like every win, and these aren't, close wins. Some of these are
Mm-hmm.
lopsided. Every
Mm-hmm.
win is just like this kid is already super cocky. It's just
Mm-hmm.
making him even more himself. And so, LeBron's 40. We've seen, the year that he's had. Um, if they want to try and make a decent showing out of this, him and Luca are gonna have to pull a rabbit out of their hat
Mm-hmm.
because not looking so good. It's looking rough.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you think it is? Do you think is it um is it what let me not because I don't know the answer. I know what my
Mm,
answer is.
mm,
I think it's just teams and players, everybody is just so good.
yeah.
Before you was going up against Kobe, right?
You had
Before
super teams and super players that just, overwhelmed everybody. Like the East was getting dominated.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
you knew the winner was going to come out of the West because the East was, kind of lame or whatever. But now everybody is
Right.
playing top notch. And I think with the Lakers, it's you bring in Luca so late in the season. It's got to be, I think initially it was, kind of like the adrenaline behind it. Whereas, this is all new. We got to go out and something to prove. And I think we're seeing now the effects of some of the gelling issues are starting to show up.
Mhm.
And it's, when you make these kind of changes this late in the season, like I said, initially it's all good because everybody's excited, everybody's hype, but then you start to settle in and it's like, oh, all that glitters is not gold.
Yeah, yeah, and all the teams are good now. Like
Yeah,
before, when you were playing against the Lakers, you was really playing against Kobe. You was playing
yeah.
against the Bulls, you was playing against Jordan, so
Mm.
on and so forth. Now it's like you're playing against the entire Minnesota Timberwolves. It's not just
You are
Anthony
playing,
Edwards.
playing. Yeah,
It's not just Anthony. You have to watch everybody because everybody can shoot. And before you know it, you down 12 points. And before you
yeah.
know it, you're down 17 points. And that's number one, right? So all
Mhm.
the teams are well rounded. It's not just the one player that's scoring all the points, with the exception of Atlanta. They need to do something about getting Trey Young some help
Get some
because the
help or
past
he's gonna
five
be out.
because the past 5 years he's been the only one that can generate his own buckets. But anyway,
Yeah,
that's besides the point.
yeah.
All the teams are good, and they have 3 and 4 players that are superstar All NBA players. So I think LeBron, he's only one person. He can't do it alone.
No.
And number two, Lakers defense is trash. And all they did with Luca was just add another trash defensive player.
Just a shooter. He
Uh,
just wants to shoot. I wanna shoot. I wanna
he'll
score
get you
points. I wanna
he'll
shoot.
get you
I wanna
he'll
play no
get you
defense.
30 he'll get you 30 40 points. But if the rest of the team on the other end is scoring,
30,
you
40 points.
right, you are going to
It's
have
Neil.
shooting and scoring is just not only the answer. And I think Lakers have admitted that to themselves.
Yeah.
Well, will admit that to themselves if they get beat and get booted out of the first round of the playoffs, only winning one game.
Mm.
They're gonna have to lock down on defense, and which will bring up the conversations about the Mavericks general manager who said defense wins championships, clearly alluding to the fact that Luka don't play defense.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're about to get booted out
Yeah.
proved for him he can sleep at night knowing that he made the right decision because Luka Doncic and LeBron James, they are not supposed to be down 3 games to 1. I'm just gonna leave it
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
there.
But what do you think about your boy Tyler Halliburton's daddy trying to square up with Giannis?
Yeah, and Tyrese Halliburton in the press conference kind of checked his dad. He was like, "Yo, I wish we could keep that on the floor. Let's just keep it on the floor. I'm gonna have to talk. I'm gonna have to talk to him. I know he meant well, but let's just leave it to the professionals." Trying in so many ways to say, "Yo, dad, chill." He
Like,
was
bro, why were you even on the court?
yeah, yeah, and then squaring up against Giannis. It's like, come on, man, you putting your son in a weird position because they got Giannis, they got Porter,
Mm.
Porter Jr., and what's the other guy's name with the headband? I can't think of his name. But anyway, they got some bruisers on Milwaukee, and I don't know if Tyrese Halliburton wants his father writing checks that Tyrese Halliburton can't cash.
And let's be honest, this is round one, friend. Why are y'all standing up on the scoring tables?
Right.
Why is your dad on the court shaking towels?
Right.
Act like you've been somewhere before.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's been a while. It's been a while since I want to say since Malice in the Palace that Indiana Pacers was a real threat. So these past 2 years have shown that the Pacers can be a potential real threat in the East. Now the question is, will they be able to make some noise against Cleveland or Boston?
Mm,
I can't remember which team they played next. I had to go look it up, but both of
either
those
way,
teams
yeah,
ain't playing.
rough roll the hoe.
Right,
Because
right.
Cleveland is like playing lights out. Like,
Yeah.
bro, where did y'all come from?
They blew Miami ran them out the gym so
Sheesh.
bad.
Mm,
They was up by 50
sad.
points, I want to say, in this last game. If I'm
Yeah, and
correct.
this is like a halftime. It was
Yeah.
like the end of the first quarter. They had like 17 points or something. It was just like, it was sad. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, how embarrassing. Bad.
So
Mr. Riley. Oh,
yeah, yeah. So we'll see if the Pacers can make some noise in the second round. If they can make some noise, then it's like, all right, y'all were one of the perennial
It's the
east,
calves they get.
east. They get the kids. So we shall see. Like you said, I'm gonna need them to act like they've been somewhere because it's just around one. Relax.
Relax.
All right. So if you don't have anything else about the NBA finals, we're gonna move into my typical slate article, and this one is I titled it, I don't like my parents paying my rent or cooking food. So
Interesting.
basically I'm just gonna read it and give
Okay.
me your thoughts. Oh, I can't read it because it's let me hold on, let me get it
It's
off
behind
of,
the firewall.
yeah,
Paywall, I mean.
it's behind the paywall. Hold on, hold up, let me get my Apple, let me get my Apple News together. Hold on. Come on, man. All right, hold up. Where is it at? Hold up, hold up. I thought I saved it in Apple. Uh Parent. Yeah, here it is. All right. All right, here we got it. All right.
Okay.
I know this is a remarkably privileged problem to have, but here goes. I am a college student, and my parents, as they move into retirement, have taken to spending a weekend or two at my apartment every couple of months, an apartment which they very generously help me pay the rent on. Generally, my approach has been that since it's partially their place, like mostly their place, they can do whatever they want. But lately, I've been running into trouble with them. So let's pause it. So, what do you think
Okay.
the trouble is?
Do they just keep showing up uninvited or something?
That's maybe part of it, but that ain't the whole. I would assume that mom and dad be getting it on in the bedroom, and
Ah,
they be loud and it's uncomfortable for the daughter. That's what I thought. That's what I
got
assumed.
you. Okay.
Or they like walk around in their drawers, something
Uh,
like indecent or
Making
weird.
themselves really at home.
Yeah. That's what, because she says, like I mentioned,
Oh, this is the daughter. Okay.
she says they spend a weekend or two at my apartment. So they're over there like maybe every weekend. So I assumed they made
That's a
themselves at
lot.
home. Yeah. All right. So
Okay.
general approach generally my approach has been, since it's partially their place, they can do whatever they want. But lately I've been running into trouble with them. I like to cook and have figured out a variety of quick and tasty recipes I like, mostly
Mhm.
spicy food that I didn't grow up eating. However, when my parents come for the weekend, they hunker down in my kitchen and cook at least 3 full meals, and each time cook at least enough food to feed 10 people. They freeze the leftovers in my fridge for me to eat. I live alone, so this essentially dooms me to a month or more of mashed potatoes or bland pasta or baked ham before I get to cook something I actually like for myself. There's an option of hosting a dinner party or giving it away, but they're very quantity over quality, and their dishes end up with stuff like onion skins still left on the onions, small bones mixed up in the meat, chunks of gristle that I feel
Oh,
bad serving my
gosh.
friends, the lack of seasoning notwithstanding. They think they're helping me, but honestly, food is not that expensive here, and I much prefer to help. I Food is not that expensive here, and I'd much prefer help with my gas or electric bill over 20 frozen casseroles. Now they want to buy me now they want to buy me more containers so that they can fit the more frozen food into my already stuffed freezer where I didn't finish the last family dinner they made me. Is there a polite way to get them to stop cooking for me when they come to visit? So that's her issue. They cook too
Sounds like
much
she got
food.
two. It sounds like she got two issues. They don't have any boundaries. Like, it's one thing
Mhm,
if I'm a parent and I make the conscious effort to tell my child, "Hey, I am going to pay for your apartment."
mhm,
To me, I'm making that decision to do that.
mhm,
And that's still that child's home.
mhm.
and that doesn't give me free reign to just, show up whenever I want and move
Mhm.
however I want.
Mhm.
I get that she feels obligated to allow them to still come over
Mhm.
and feel obligated, or have to be grateful,
Mhm.
that, they're cooking this food. But at the same time, she's an adult.
Mhm.
They've made the conscious decision to help pay for this.
Mhm.
She needs to, there is a polite way to do this, but it's gonna still be an uncomfortable conversation
Mhm.
because these are her parents. She feels a certain kind of way,
Mhm.
but she's just gonna have to put her big girl pants on and have a
Mhm.
sit down and say, well, I'm grateful that you are, paying for this apartment. We have to put some boundaries up. We need to plan, we need to schedule these visits, and I have the right to say, no, you can't come this weekend. And if anything, I have the right to say, I'm not going to, I'm one person. I can't eat food for 10 people.
Mhm.
And I don't want to eat the same thing. So if when you're here, if you want to cook for what you can eat
Mhm.
in that visit.
So I take it from a different way.
Okay.
I think that she doesn't want to mess up the money,
Hmm.
and so
I get that.
she feels like if she says something, then they may retaliate, right? But that's just one issue, right?
Hmm.
I think she is making a mountain out of a molehill, and what I mean by that is it's not like they're coming over anytime they feel like it. They let her know, hey, we're coming over this weekend, whatever the case may be. Now she can say,
That's
hey,
like a
that's
man, but that's like a mandatory. That's like them just advising her. That's not them like asking her,
right.
"Hey, is it
So
okay if we come over such and such and such?"
right. So I think all she has to do is say, hey, this weekend's not good for me. Let's
Right.
pick another weekend, right? You don't
Yeah.
I don't think it's come to the point that, hey, we need to set some boundaries. She just needs to say, hey, it's just one of me. Hey, y'all don't need to make all this food. I don't think she said that. I don't think she said anything. I
Yeah.
think she has not lied to them. I think she has just bit
Let
her
them run
lip.
amok.
Yes, and let them do whatever they're gonna do, right? Which personally, I don't think is a. I believe that they think that her parents are like, all right, she's in her mid 20s, or she's young, even though she's an adult. She's in her early to mid 20s. You know how old people think she ain't got no man. So let's come
Maybe if
over
they
here.
weren't there half the month over the weekend, she'd get her one.
Right. But they're like, let's make sure, because you parents,
Let's
man,
help her. Yeah.
let's make sure she's got some food to eat. And
Yeah.
she ain't said, hey,
I
why
don't
don't we
want it or
try?
it's enough. Yeah.
She ain't got to do that. She could say, hey, you know what? I'm trying to be healthy. These are the things I like. If y'all want to make some food and y'all want to do me a favor, try making this instead of that.
Mm,
Or let's come over and let's all cook together. People don't like confrontation. So they shut down, they shut
mm.
up, they let people run over them until they're running off on the internet to say, hey, my parents are busters because they cook too much food. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's the issue. They ain't bringing friends over. They ain't having no swingers party. They ain't butt naked in the living room. They not ain't nobody's cheeks getting clapped all in your whatever the
In the
case may
living room.
be. I could think of more pertinent things to be mad at your parents about outside of they cook me too much food that I don't particularly enjoy. Now,
A conversation needs to be had.
right, having
Yeah.
said that, she needs to speak up and be like,
Yeah.
yo, why don't we try this instead of that?
Yeah.
Because that's my thing. My thing is compromise. When
Yeah.
somebody is approaching me with something that I have questions, I feel a kind of way about. I'm
Mhm.
like, my thing is like, well, I ain't gonna do that, but I'll do this. Right. I
Mhm.
think she needs to take the same thing. When they say, all right, we coming over this weekend, she needs to do the compromise and say, well, this weekend is bad for me. Let's try the third weekend in May. Right. And like,
Or
not
why don't you guys come up for dinner? Just
not
come
even
up for dinner.
but it can't be a what do you guys think? It's got to be a
Yeah.
I'm not doing this. Let's
But we can do
do
this.
not we can.
Let's do.
Yes, let's do this. And I don't
Yeah.
think she's spoken up for herself.
Yeah.
And eventually, It's going to go from her parents running over her to
To
her
everybody else.
boyfriend running over her to her bosses running over her
Friends,
to her
yeah, everybody.
friends running over, the
Yeah,
kids running over you when you get
yeah.
married and have kids. So use your parents as this opportunity to say,
A
hey,
template.
yeah, 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 right, right. Guinea pigs to say,
Yeah.
hey, this is what I think we should do. This is a good idea. Let's try this. I'm not really feeling that. Let's do this instead. Just don't say no. Just don't
Yeah.
say I'm tired of y'all cooking for me. Just say, just say, hey, why don't we try this? And then see how they take it. Now, if they still forcing themselves, now you got to be like, all right, do I want to mess up this money? Or do I want to stand up, or do I want to just, live in this subsidized apartment, you know?
And my thing is, if she thinks that they may take away the money, she needs to maybe, get herself 3 months saved up before she has this conversation.
Find a cheaper apartment because it's like
Yeah,
you an adult. My
yeah.
thing is, look, listen,
Do you need a 2-bedroom? Get you a one. Get you a
listen,
studio.
listen. If you living under my house, you're living under my rules. If I'm paying for the house that you living in, it's still my house. So it's still my rules. Now, if you want to be an adult and move out and venture out and do your own thing, look, I support you 100%. But if I'm contributing, I am contributing. So but again, like I said, a lot of these kids are so scared to get out on their own, or they're used to their parents. They're used to their parents paying for things. And it's like, all right,
Yeah,
you got
I
to break the
saw a
cycle.
recent I saw an article recently saying that a lot of Gen Z and even some millennial parents are paying their kids rent and their bills,
Mhm.
and that these parents are now um, having to come to grips with having to tell their children,
I got to cut you
"Hey,
off.
I
Right.
got to cut you off because you see what's going on with this market. I can't afford it." And a lot of them are kind of freaking out because they've allowed this to be the life that their kids have. And now
Mhm.
it's like they literally are pulling the rug out from under them.
Right. Because
And
they've
I
grown
feel
accustomed
bad for,
to.
yeah,
Yeah.
I feel bad for both sides, the parents wanting to give their kids a leg up, help them out. And so now these kids have become complacent. But at the same time, as an adult, even if your parents are still taking care of you, if you're working and doing all these things, are you just blowing all the money? Are you not like being responsible? And the answer is likely no, because they just see this as a never ending kind of well that's going to keep going. And it's really going to flip the world upside down of these kids who were like, so now I got to do this by myself. I don't know how
Mhm.
to. And the parents were going to feel bad because there's like, in order for us to be able to continue to live in retirement and do all of our stuff, we can't we can't keep paying 1500 $1,600 a month just for you to kind of just like goof off around and not, get
Right.
into this real adult thing. So
Yeah. And
I see.
shame on parents for just funding their kids' lives indefinitely. If
Yeah.
you're a parent, I'm a parent. I'm like, yo, you got 6 months, you got 3 months, you got until you find your next job, you got to find until you get your next tax return.
A hand up.
We're putting
Hands
a
up.
we're putting parameters
Yeah.
on these, agreements. And
Yeah.
a lot of parents
They're not
can't say
doing
no.
that.
Parents can't say no to their kids, and in this case, kids don't know how to say no to their parents. It's a never
Yeah.
ending cycle. Well, that's gonna break for me, Jack, because my kids, it's like, look, you can stay at the house, but look, listen, you putting in on some groceries, you just can't
Some
come in and
utilities,
out,
some light bills, some water bills. We gotta
and,
have
and you just can't
stuff
come and
come in
go
and
as
out.
you
Yeah.
please, and
Yeah.
you can't just
I don't want to know
bring.
all of your movements, but you need to have some level of respect
Mm,
of, coming in and out of the house
and you can't bring
all
just
willy nilly
anybody over the house
over
either.
here. Yeah.
So, which one you want to do? You want to live with us, or you want to be independent? Pick one.
Yeah.
All right. So that's going to do it for the live show. We're going to take a quick break and jump right into the show that airs on Friday. 34. All right. Let's see here. All right. Let me smile for these smiles in three, two. All right. All right. In three, two. Yo, this is Terrence Gaines, aka Brother Tech.
And this is Nika Monford, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
And welcome back to the snobOS show, the show for Apple snobs, where we talk all things Apple and then some. We are back with another episode of the snobOS show. This is episode 311 of the snobOS show. And before we get started, I need you to do two things. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, continue doing your thing. Just drop us a review. Drop us rate us 5 stars. Drop a review. I love the show. Keep doing your thing on Apple. We are also now on Spotify, and we're also trying to grow our engagement on YouTube. So for Spotify and YouTube, I need you to listen or watch, because on Spotify and YouTube, you can now watch us or listen to us in traditional podcast format. So I need you to watch and or listen on Spotify and YouTube, and do the typical YouTube stuff. Like, subscribe, comment. Same thing with Spotify. If you're listening to us on Spotify, leave a comment, rate the show. We're trying to get our analytics up on both Spotify and YouTube so we can monetize, so we can bring in a little bit more.
$1 bills.
Yeah, so we can bring you even more content. So those are the things I need you to do. Listen on Apple, listen and or watch on Spotify and YouTube, and show some engagement. Click a like, subscribe, do all of the things. So the second thing I need you to do is, as per usual, go to patreon.com/snoboscast. Become a snobist. You'll get to listen to the show early, get to listen to it live, and you'll get some exclusive content you will not hear or watch or see. See is better. Or see on this show. All right. Having said that, we're going to move into the lowdown where we talk all things Apple. So this first story, speaking of Spotify, Meta, Spotify, and others launch a coalition against Apple and Google. So I'm just going to read this byline here. New lobbying group formed by Meta, Spotify, and Match Group is challenging Apple and Google's role in the mobile app ecosystem, arguing the company should bear legal responsibility. That's important. Legal responsibility for verifying users' ages and accusing them of anti-competitive business practices that disadvantage developers. So, to summarize, Spotify, this Match company, um, Meta, is all claiming that, number one, Apple and Google should be responsible for verifying users' ages before they go on to social media platforms like Facebook, Meta, Instagram, all these other places. They want the device manufacturers to bear the responsibility of verifying their users before they go to these social media platforms. That's the first thing that they want to do. Two, the second thing they want to do is cut into Apple and Google's stronghold of their own ecosystems, and are putting out campaigns saying that Apple and Google's lock on these app stores, these app ecosystems, are anti-competitive and they're bad for developers. So those are the two things that this coalition that Meta and Spotify and others have created, because they want to push the responsibility of age verification on Apple and Google, and they want them to be nicer in the Apple ecosystem. So what say you about this coalition?
So it's funny that these other three large corporations, Meta being one of the largest ones, are trying to form a coalition and challenge anything. That's laughable. But I have to say, I'm a little confused at what the expectation is of them having the device do the age verification when it's not actually, when the user has the decision to decide whether to download someone's app or not.
And not just
So,
that. There's not a age restriction for buying an iPhone.
for buying a phone, for
Mm-hmm.
owning a phone, anybody can own a phone.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like they are trying to basically shirk their responsibility for the content that's on their apps by
Mhm.
saying you have to hold the hardware manufacturer
Mhm.
responsible for the software applications
Mhm.
that aren't native
Mm-mm.
to the phone.
Mm-mm.
So that's weird. And I don't think they're going to have very much luck with that, because if that's the case, then why have what the end user license agreements for all these apps? If you're going to have a license agreement for the user,
Mhm.
then how does that work? How do you have a license agreement for your app, but you're requiring the device to basically hold some of that responsibility? Are
Yeah.
you able to siphon off and slice out different pieces of the license agreement, or are you just focused on only covering in the license agreements the things that benefit you, the things
Well,
that you want to slide in?
this age verification thing is only going to get more intense. There are states right now that are trying to force social media platforms to age verify. We've
Mhm.
talked about it before. The porn sites
Mhm.
are in the middle of trying to figure out, all right, who should be responsible for the age verification. Again, you make a good point. It's like, why are you making the hardware manufacturers responsible for age verification for software when, one, like we mentioned, it's not, there's no age restriction to buy an iPhone, and two, the end user is using the phone as just a conduit to access your platform.
The user
That's
is making the decision
right.
whether to get the app and use it or not. That has
Exactly.
nothing to do with hardware.
And it has nothing to do with hardware, because I can go drop the iPhone, pick up a Google, and get on Facebook too.
Yeah.
So it's like the social media, the software platform is the one that, like you mentioned, is should be the paywall, or should be the bodyguard, not the bouncer rather.
Mhm.
Before you come into the club, you need to verify your age. It's not when you get into the car, because this is kind of like, what's that like? It's like, let's think of it like a club. The club doesn't want to age verify anybody, right? What they
Mhm.
want to do is blame and force the car manufacturers
That drives them to the club,
to
or the
age
bus that takes them to the club.
right, to age verify before they get into the car, before they get to the club. That makes no sense.
That makes no sense. So, yeah, that's why when you're talking, I was like, how can they try how do you even enforce that? I don't even know if you can. I
Well, the
I don't know.
I guess the only argument I can think of is like, if users with an iPhone or an Apple ID or Google, or with the Google ID or whatever they call it, they have to be a certain age. They have to agree to certain things in order to get the email or get the account set up, right? And I think with Apple, I think you got to be, well, you don't, because you got kids with iPhones
Mhm.
and you can lock it down and all those things, right?
And you
So,
have the family share plan. So it to me, it would seem like the software provider would still have to do something. They would still have to talk to Apple to say our device is only for, say, 13 and up.
mhm,
So when you sign in with your Apple ID, you put your age on there, and then it doesn't allow you to download it.
mhm, yeah,
That's about the only way, but there still has to be some communication between the software and
and
the hardware.
we're trying to think about this logically, but there's no logic to
I
it.
don't there's because
It's
this is
it's
this is nuts.
it's basically Meta and these software platforms don't want to put the extra
They're
money.
shirking their responsibility.
They don't want to put the extra money or the responsibility in building a platform that then verifies people's age. It's not like it's impossible, but they don't want to spend the money to do it. And
Yeah,
then with the app thing, they just don't want to be charged that crazy 30%. So they're saying, oh,
yeah.
it's anti-competitive. Heard it all before. It's just like they are trying not to be on the hook.
Different
That's
people
all.
have tried the same thing with this
Mhm.
whole app store thing, and it would be one thing if it was just, say, Apple, and the only way you get your apps on these phones is by going through the Apple ecosystem, but that's not the case. Google
Mhm.
has their own ecosystem, and Apple has their own ecosystem, so it's not like it's, a a non-competitive environment, right?
Right, right.
It's
Mhm.
it is competitive, and you don't have to go to rely on one source solely for this. You have options. If I don't want to be on an iPhone, I can get an Android, or I could get a Pixel, or I could get whatever, whoever else has phones out there.
Hmm.
I have options on what I can choose as a user. So it's not like it's, this one app store is holding all the cards. No,
All right.
I think this is busy work for their attorneys.
Yeah, they're just trying to drum up fan base for what they're trying to do. All right,
Yeah.
so moving on to the next story, Google AI on iPhones. I put this a
Okay.
question mark because it seems like that's something Apple wouldn't do. But I mean, you've got Chat GPT, you've got a couple other things that you can access. Well, just Chat GPT. As close to being built into the OS as possible without actually being built into the OS. But it looks like Google wants to be the next one because, according to the story, Google is close to striking a deal with Apple to integrate Gemini into the iPhone. During the search monopoly trial on Wednesday, Google CEO Sundar Pichai, I hope I said his name right,
I think.
confirmed the company expects to strike a Gemini deal with Apple by the middle of this year and suggested it would roll out by the end of 2025. So, what are your takes on Apple and Google possibly working together to get Gemini, another possibly competitive AI to Apple Intelligence on an iPhone?
I'm not too surprised because I think when we first heard about Apple Intelligence and they talked about the different types of integrations and the different levels of security. So, you're doing your own device searches. If you don't find what you want on your on device search with Apple Intelligence, you can ask it to use another AI system to do that same thing. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, when this first came out, it was initially understood that they were starting with open AI, with other AI tools to follow. So I just think they're using Chat GPT, and the next is to bring on Google Gemini. And it's going to get to the point where when you ask homegirl something, and she doesn't give you the answer you want, you can say, well, what do I want to use? Do I want to use OpenAI? Do I want to use eventually probably Claude? Do I want to use Llama? Do I want to use Chat GPT? And you'll have a list of other
Hmm.
large language model tools that you can select from to
Yeah,
use. This is just the next iteration of that.
yeah, I think Apple's stalling, to be honest. I think they're stalling. Apple Intelligence, I'm pretty sure they did not want to integrate Chat GPT at the level that is currently integrated.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they don't really want to integrate Gemini. But what other options
Their
do you
backs against the wall at this
yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, either come on with the come on, or you're gonna have to let more partners in like Gemini. I thought Copilot, Microsoft Copilot would
Hmm.
be the second one up past OpenAI because OpenAI is just popular. But
Yeah.
past that, Apple and Microsoft has had a working relationship in the past. So I'm surprised Gemini is has unofficially jumped the line.
Well, I think they're the furthest probably along. I know that um Gemini was had some issues initially when it was supposed to come out. Remember, it was called something else. I forgot what it was
Mhm.
called initially. And then it was like, ooh, this is bad. We're not just gonna fix it, we're just gonna give it a whole name. And then they've been iterating over Gemini over the course of the last year or so. And they make it improved it and made it better, made it better, made it better. And now they're to a point where we're in a good space with Gemini that we can now share it with the world.
Yeah, and the fact that Google is the default search engine for iPhones, so it's not far-fetched
Yeah.
to believe that Apple would strike another deal with Google. Maybe
Yeah.
not as similar as Google search, but it's not unheard of.
Yeah. They already have that relationship.
All right, all right. So moving on to the next story, the iPhone Air. And again, we don't do rumors, so we really haven't talked about the iPhone Air, but there was a story that brought up a good case, and I wanted to get your take. An ultra slim iPhone is a nice to have in the current form factor, but it's an absolute necessity for another step in the company's plans, i.e., a foldable iPhone. So if you think about it, the rumors for the iPhone Air is that it's supposed to be the thinnest iPhone we've ever seen.
Mhm.
Super thin, like, will this break type
Yeah.
thin, right? And I think this story that I found makes a good case in 9 to 5 Mac that the reason why they're making the iPhone Air so slim is so when they stack another one on top of it for this foldable phone, it won't be as thick as some of the foldable phones currently in the market. You think of the Samsung Galaxies.
Mhm.
I've seen them and I've held them. They are usable as just a one screen phone,
Mhm.
but it is thick. But then you fold it out, you can see why. You can see the benefits, right? But
Yeah.
I believe that Apple does not want to sacrifice on thickness just to make a foldable phone.
Mhm.
So to me, it's plausible that they would come out with an iPhone 17 Air to see how that works in the wild and then sandwich
Mhm.
another one on top of it in 2027 or
Mhm.
2026 for this foldable phone because Apple has struck out recently in the past couple outings with the Vision Pro,
Mhm.
with the and with the Apple Intelligence. So it's like we need a win,
They need a
and
win.
nobody's really asking for a foldable iPhone, but they need a
Mhm.
win. So I can see them doing the iPhone Air as a prelude to a foldable
Mhm.
phone. What do you think?
So, I didn't think this is where you were going with it being a people call it foldable, it's a flip phone.
Well, you
You
know
won't
what I
ever.
mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my thought when you were talking about, how thin it was and, the potential of it bending, my thought automatically went to maybe they're actually this is the first step into them actually having a foldable phone. If it's this thin and they're able to manipulate it like an actual foldable phone, not necessarily a
They're
flip,
not they're
but
not doing
actual
that.
foldable.
Nick, I'm letting you know they're not doing that. Foldable phone is something that you fold in half for like a book. You can fold a technically you can fold a book, but you're not really folding it, you're just closing it.
Closing it, yeah.
Right. So the same thing, but yeah, you've said this multiple times,
Yep.
and I'm telling you, we
I'm not
have
letting it go.
we have
Not
a we have adopted foldable phone to be a phone that closes and
flits.
opens.
Yeah. But no, when you were talking about it and you were saying about the bending, I was like, oh, is this going where I think it's going? Is it going to the fact that they may be trying to thin this out,
Mhm,
even more? And that's why I was like, oh, this is where it's going. Then when you mentioned, flipping or what, I was like, oh, okay. Um, I guess this is what they're trying to do
mhm,
because to me, the iPhone Air, I've said it before and I will continue to say it, it just doesn't make sense to me
mm-mm,
to have it so thin that you can't even have a regular size chip in it.
mhm,
You are going to lose some of the functionality
mhm,
around the connectivity issues,
mhm,
meaning your Wi-Fi antennas, the way it's able to communicate because with it being that thin,
mhm,
some of the hardware that you need to do some of the functionality that we've come to expect from an iPhone, you're
mhm,
not going to be able to do it
mhm,
because the phone is going to be so thin. You
mhm,
think about the battery life. What kind of battery life can this thing have?
mhm,
Because how big can the battery actually be? Unless Apple has a battery team,
mhm.
I don't trust that so much because we've seen what happened with the Air Power Mat and their whole, attempts at this battery type situation. It just really, I guess, this foldable idea makes the most sense why they are moving forward if this iPhone Air is truly a thing that we can expect to happen, because otherwise it doesn't make sense to have this Air. Now, if they do it where it's foldable, then sure, you're able to run more hardware
Mhm,
around a bigger surface. You're
mhm.
able to have maybe not a thicker battery, but a wider
It's got 2.
battery.
It's got 2.
Yeah.
1 on both sides.
So, yeah, so it's one of those things where you can kind of, make the case for that. And that really, I guess that's the most plausible explanation why even go with an iPhone Air if people are going to be afraid to drop it in their purse or put it in
Mhm,
their pocket because you move the wrong way a little bit, things bent. So this to me seems like, I guess, a plausible explanation as to why they're doing this Air phone.
Yeah, I haven't done any research. I haven't looked into the iPhone Air, but if it's what you say to where they're going to have to sacrifice from some functionality in order to make it so thin, that makes sense because they know coming behind it
Mhm.
is an iPhone Air on top of an iPhone Air, which is going to, like you mentioned, give it more surface.
Air 2.
Right. It's going to be the iPhone Fold or iPhone whatever, and typically,
Yeah,
and it's just going to be two iPhone Airs sandwiched and
together.
connected with a photo with a bendable screen.
Hinge.
Yeah. All right. All right. So let me ask this: would you buy
Mhm.
a photo? Let
No,
me just no.
no.
um.
I want a real foldable phone. I don't
Right.
want a hinge phone. I don't
Right.
want a flip phone. I want the phone that I saw on the TV show I've mentioned before with Halle Berry and Extant. When I think of a foldable phone,
Hmm.
the phone they had on that show, that's what I think about, not
Yeah.
a flip phone. And I've given who was it, Samsung, so much shit about their flip phone, their
Hmm.
foldable phone. And plus, I don't like the way it looks when it's out.
Hmm.
And I've seen people with them and that crease up the screen part in that crease
Hmm.
because it has to be made out of a malleable material
Hmm.
because it has to close. You
Hmm.
can see it kind of bubble and ridge and it just doesn't look neat. And that's not what I've come to expect from iPhone. I've come to expect neatness, sleekness, refined, and that little kind of bubbling, rippling, small piece of the screen in the middle. I don't
Hmm.
want that in my life.
Um, I would consider it only if it is as thin and as sleek as this. This is my 16 Pro Max, and this is pretty
Mhm,
thin.
mhm.
A foldable phone has to be this thick. It can't be any thicker than this, and it has to be the same screen size
Mhm.
as a, Pro Max or whatever. And what I mean by that is the Samsung foldable phones, the one screen that you use it like a regular smartphone is
It's
smaller.
thick
Well, it's thick on top of that,
mm,
and the screen
in itself.
size, yeah, the screen resolution, the screen real estate rather, is
Mhm.
smaller than your standard run of the mill iPhone Plus, iPhone Max. So I
Yeah.
would want this same phone thinner, but when it works like a traditional one screen phone until I open it up and I get all this extra stuff. Right now, Samsung's
Yeah.
close, but they're not quite there because, like I mentioned, like you mentioned, the fold is still super noticeable. And
Mhm.
I've seen people with Galaxy Folds who've had their phone for 2 years. It's not, if you don't keep it in perfect, pristine condition, it looks old.
Worn.
And
Yeah.
yeah, that's even a better word. It looks worn when you've had that phone for a couple years. And again, I only keep my phones a year or so, but at the same time, I don't want 6 months. It looks like an old clanky phone because I
Mhm.
didn't did this 50 million thousand times and it don't look the same
And
as
with
when you
these
bought it.
tariffs, we don't know, the next phone might be $3,000,
Yeah,
so
right, right. So definitely if it costs that much for an iPhone phone, I am out. All right. So that's going to do it for the lowdown. We're going to move into second string where we talk tech in general. And what do you think about AI with First Amendment rights? What's your take on that? I just wanted to throw it out there before we get into the context. What is your thoughts on AI having free speech? Think of chatbot.
AI.
Think of
Yeah.
chatbots. Think of interacting with Gemini or whatever. This, if they say something sideways, do they have free speech? What do you think?
These chatbots aren't sentient. Um, and so that gives me one for pause. And
Hmm.
two, again, these chatbots are created by people.
Hmm.
They are created by data sets that people create.
Hmm.
So giving it a pass is, I think it sets a bad precedent because we don't know where this technology is eventually going to go. And if you set it up originally to say, you know what? you know what? Let's make sure that you know, sure, let's do this. But
Right.
then down the line, it's like, wait a minute, we probably made a mistake. I think that when it comes to technology that's on the newer side of things, I don't know if I feel comfortable making that type of decision. I don't know. We'll get into it. I don't know who's making these decisions, but it needs to be a consortium of people from different sectors because there are things to consider and things to think about that me as a user or someone who creates things, I wouldn't even take into account. So, you know what? I'm not sure. There still needs to be some responsibility around this technology because of the fact that some people are using chat gpt as their therapist.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so again, these are man-made created technologies and there needs to be some responsibility um, around keeping people safe as they use, especially in the chat bot arena, because if they're dishing out information, dishing out um, thoughts and suggestions on some complex topics, there needs to be protections around it.
All right. Well, so let me give you the context. So, pushing to dismiss a lawsuit alleging that its chatbots caused a teen's suicide, Character Technologies is arguing that the chatbot outputs should be considered pure speech, quotes, deserving the highest degree of protection under the First Amendment. So basically, in their motion to dismiss, the developers of Character.ai argued that it doesn't matter who the speaker is, whether it's a video game character spouting scripted dialogue, a foreign propagandist circulating misinformation, or a chatbot churning out AI generated responses to prompting. Courts protect listeners' rights to access that speech, accusing the mother accusing the mother of the departed teen, Megan Garcia, of attempting to insert this court into the conversations of millions of chat or character AI users and supposedly endeavoring to shut down character.ai. The chatbot maker argued that the First Amendment bars all of her claims. So basically, what's happening is character AI has been brought up in a lawsuit from a mother who, according to the mother, the character AI chatbot influenced, caused.
I think we talked about this, right?
Right. It this teen decided to unalive themselves based on the conversations it had with this character.ai. Character.ai is saying, even though that may be the case, you can't come after us because character AI should have First Amendment rights. And First Amendment rights says, I didn't make this person unalive themselves. So I shouldn't be held responsible by just having a conversation and then subsequently this person unalives themselves because I'm protected by my First Amendment rights as a human. So this character AI is trying to say, hey, we're protected by the same rights because of what you said, like you mentioned, Nika, that humans created this. So since
Hmm.
humans created it, then it should be protected from First Amendment.
Hmm.
So that's
I
their
can.
argument.
Hmm. I hadn't thought about it that way, but I guess that is a point to be made. But also, a point to be made is freedom of speech doesn't come without consequences.
Sure.
And I think what they're only trying to do one part of the free speech.
Right.
And
Like
that's the we
everybody
should be able to say
does.
what yeah,
Right.
we should be able to say whatever we want because I got free speech. I can say whatever I want. Nobody
Mhm.
can tell me what to say or what not to
Right.
say. Sure, but that doesn't allow you to be completely free of any culpability.
Sure.
You know, the whole thing, you can't yell fire in a crowded room and say that's free speech
Hmm.
without, it being consequences. So that's
Right.
why I said this. this type of technology ushers in a new thought process, because I really think you can see it kind of on both sides. The chat itself isn't sentient, it's created by people. So if it's created by people, then that should have rights, right? Or is you're saying you're creating this, and it's people are creating it, so it's one of those things where you need to have some guardrails on it as well. So like I said, it ushers in a new thought process on how do we handle this in the future. Right now, whatever the outcome of this is going to set precedent, whether the courts agree with character AI and say, yeah, sure, you have AI rights. I can see this thing going completely off the rails with people doing stuff and lacking, because there are responsible AI entities. Responsible AI is a whole thing. AI ethicists, those are actual people who do that as a career. That's why you see a lot of AI researchers who have doctorates in philosophy, because you're trying to put humanity in something that is not an animate creature, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to try and blend those two things kind of together to make it work. So it's one of those things where I don't think there's an easy answer to this. I don't know if the courts are going to be able to rule definitively on this one way or not, because there are so many aspects to come at it with. And I don't know if these judges or people making these decisions have the right knowledge base to understand this and in its context. So I don't know. I don't
Well,
know.
so you said it, and I think it needs to be as simple as this: the AI ain't sentient. It is not coming up with these thoughts, these words, the expressions on its own. It is getting this information that has been curated, that's been pulled, that's been downloaded, that's been uploaded, that's been transcribed,
Scraped all over the world.
however you want to do it. AI is reading or interpreting what to say next based off of the information that has been given by the creators, right? So as a
Based solely
result,
off text.
right,
Yeah.
right. So as a result, the creator should be held responsible because the chatbot did not come up with this, whatever this conversation was on its own that caused this tragedy. Is pulling from somewhere. Where it's
Yeah.
pulling from, that is the responsive.
That's the question.
That's where the responsibility should lie. Now, until intelligence starts to manifest itself in inanimate objects, then we can have this conversation. We ain't there yet. They're just pulling from a script. They're just pulling from a database. So whoever owns the database, you're responsible until for now, for the time being. We can have this
Yeah.
conversation later when things change.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Scary times
Well,
indeed.
so all right. So that's it for second string. We're gonna move into for the culture, where we talk tech, or not tech, culture in general. This is in our backyard. This is falling on the back end of the NFL draft, where Shador Sanders, the son of Deion Sanders, was much talk during the NFL draft. He
Mm-hmm.
didn't go the first round, second round, third round, fourth round. I think he went the fifth round,
Fifth.
and he went to the Cleveland Browns,
Mm-hmm.
which is a graveyard for quarterbacks.
Mm. They already
So,
have. They are like five deep.
right, and they Cleveland Browns have been the poster child for problematic quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So jury's out on whether or not Shador can change that, or if he's just too far on the depth chart to even
Make an
make
impact.
make an impact in the first 2 or 3 or 4 years of his season.
Yeah.
So there's arguments to be made that the
Yeah.
NFL conspired. There are arguments to be made that everybody said, "Oh, this kid is needs to be humbled. He's only up here because who his father is." Yada yada yada. I ain't even arguing. That ain't even the
That.
point of the conversation.
Mm.
The point of this conversation is everybody decided they wanted to pile on to what was happening to Shador Sanders during this NFL draft.
Mm.
And the Atlanta Falcons somehow got involved, and the league, the NFL, has fined the Falcons organization and defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich
Mhm.
individually for the information breach related to prank calling NFL draft candidate Shador Sanders. Jeff Ulbricht's 21-year-old son got Shador Sanders' number from his dad's iPad, then pranked called Sanders pretending to be New Orleans Saints general manager. So basically what happened was
Mhm.
during the NFL draft, teams get together, owners get together, front office gets together, they decide, they have a conversation. They may or may not call the player that they're interested in drafting to let them know, hey, we're about to draft you. 2 or 3 minutes later, the
Name's
commissioner
called.
walks out and says, for the eight, whatever pick, whatever the Cleveland Browns select Shador Sanders. What
Mm.
this dude's son did was he pretended to be the New
Mhm.
Orleans general manager, called Shador Sanders and said, hey, we're interested in drafting you. You look good. You check all the boxes. We're interested in drafting you. You just got to wait on the draft. So on top of all the stuff that was happening to Shador Sanders during the NFL draft, his whole mindset, whatever the case may be, he's also
Mhm.
getting called by an
Mhm.
NFL team, which
Mhm.
is crazy.
Mm.
So as a result, the Jeff Ulbricht's son apologized. He put this long post on Instagram saying that was a terrible mistake. You know,
Misspelling the kid's name.
shame on me for messing up your night, yada yada yada. But
Mm.
but even more than that, the NFL fined the Atlanta Falcons and the daddy Jeff
Mhm.
Ulbrich a total of $250,000, which Ulbrich, I think his share of that is $100,000. So this
Oh,
dude,
I thought it was 350. I thought the team got to pay a 250 and then the coach had to pay 100,000.
no, the way I'm reading it is, well, let me make sure because what I got from yeah, Ulbrich owes 100,000, and the team as a whole owes 250,000. So to me, when it says as a whole, that means including Jeff Ulbricht's
Oh.
100,000. The team as a whole owes 250. So Ulbrich paid
Oh,
100.
okay.
Ulbrich paid 100. The Atlanta Falcons paid 150.
Okay,
So
because it was circulating was 350 because the dad
yeah,
owed 100 and they okay. Either way, it's still a lot of money.
it is a
But
lot
continue.
of money to
Yeah.
be my bad for prank calling you, which again brings up that whole you want to talk about nepotism and Shador
Mm.
Sanders and Deion Sanders. We gonna talk about nepotism and how
Mm.
this kid, and he ain't no 16-year-old. That's the
21.
thing. This he's not a 17-year-old, he's not an 18-year-old. He is a 21 year
Grown man.
old adult.
Mm-hmm.
Decided he wanted to steal the personally identifiable information
Mm-hmm.
from the Atlanta Falcons, because you got to look at it this way. They're trying to frame it as, oh, it's just a prank call. But if we being
Mm-hmm.
technical about it, he stole Shador Sanders' personally identifiable information and used it and shared it and then used it to further harm, detriment, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Nobody's looked at
Right.
it like that. Everybody's looking at it as, oh, it was just the kid's dad got a hold of his dad's iPad and decided to play a prank. No, 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 no.
No. Mm-mm.
If Shador Sanders wanted to sue the
He
Atlanta
could.
Falcons
And he's in his right.
for HIPAA violations. Now again, HIPAA deals with healthcare and all that stuff, but at the same vein, personally identifiable information, if leaked or stolen or lost, can bring some
Right.
legal challenges.
And we don't know what that data was because these teams have these full dossiers on
Mhm,
these players. So you don't
mhm.
know what information this
Kid
what
got a
is
hold
it?
of.
Jax got a hold of. And
Yeah,
that's why the team got fined
right.
because this is a data breach. It
Yes.
may not be the typical data breach where your
The
email
dark
gets leaked
web.
or
Yeah.
or this hacking or something. No, this is still a data breach
Yep.
because this was a team iPad.
Yep.
This wasn't the dad's personal iPad. It
Nope.
was his Atlanta Falcons issued
Mm-hmm.
corporate iPad.
Mm-hmm.
And so the dad got fined because he's not keeping this thing locked.
Nope. Apparently not.
The Atlanta Falcons got fined because they don't have methods in place to secure personal data. And the
Mm-hmm.
third thing is this phone number that this Jax got was solely for the draft.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he was confused because the only people
Who
who
had
had
it?
this phone numbers
Right.
were the 32 teams in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
These are the only people that had that number. So you know that it had to come from that because initially they were saying that it was the New York Giants general manager's daughter because Jax and the other young man that actually, because Jax didn't make the phone call, his friend made it,
Mm-hmm.
and they videoed it and they posted it online. And so all this happened at Ole Miss. The New York Giants general manager's daughter goes to Ole Miss, so that's why she was initially in the mix. And there was a lot of conversation about Dion wanting him to go to the Giants, so that's why she got brought up in the mix. But all that to say, outside of the emotional stuff, they were already predicting that he would go definitely in the top 10. Talks
Mm-hmm.
were in the top 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he slipped through the first day, he
Mm-hmm.
slipped through the second day, and then he got in, I think it was the third day was round 5, maybe either the second or third day. And I'm sure it was already pretty taxing because even though Jax is 21 and he's adult, Shador is 21, 22, these are still emotional things.
Right.
This, Shador has been ridiculed from adults and
Mm-hmm.
millions of people around the world. His dad has been, that way, his teammates, his brother, all of these emotional things, and you're already on edge because you're predicted to go this way, and then it's completely the other way, and people online picking at you, laughing at you, talking, ha ha ha, he deserved it, he's not really that good, all of these things. And now you have someone who thinks, and I think in the statement he was like, it was unplanned. How was it unplanned for you to go home? You don't live in
Right.
Atlanta.
Right.
You live in Mississippi. You go through your dad's iPad, you get the number, you take it back with you. You wait until
Mm-hmm.
the draft happens.
Right.
Then you call, then you record it and you post it. There is nothing not planned about this. This whole thing was unplanned, and it reeks of I'm a rich white dude and I can do what I want and nothing's going to happen to me. And the sad thing is, nothing is going to happen to this Jax.
Right. And that's what I
Alone.
was saying about the nepotism. It's like they've
Yeah.
got that much money to where
Yeah.
this kid was like, I mean, my bad. My dad'll pay it.
Oopsies. Yeah.
That, to me, that is the epitome of nepotism
Now
versus
listen, if I cost my parents $100,000 and then their job $150,000,
right.
you I mean, am I still on Earth? Am I
Right.
still here? Have I gone to the astral plane? Because one, this is a
Yeah.
lot of money for parents to come off of, and two, just the sheer embarrassment and the fact that his dad hasn't lost his job
Well,
says a lot.
according to them, they say Jeff Ulbrich was unaware of the data exposure or any facets of the prank and was made aware of the above only after the fact.
That doesn't change a thing.
Yeah.
That's still how he got the information, right? He wasn't keeping it locked. Obviously, he wasn't securing it.
Mhm.
Just had the iPad, whether it was on the couch or somewhere, even if
I'm
it was in his office or something.
I'm pretty
The kid
sure.
has free range of his home, right?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the son came up with an excuse as to
Tapped
why
into his
he
dad
needed
iPad.
to use his iPad because that goes again that corroborates the idea that this was planned because
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure the son drafted this whole plan. You see it on a movie to where they
yeah.
pretend like they need, oh, I need to get a look in something real quick. And you
My
unlock the phone.
iPad's dead.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
I
yeah,
can't
yeah.
get to my
That's exactly what happened. And then the
I
plan
need to
was,
check my grades.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then the plan was in motion. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a shame that, $250,000 sounds like a lot of money, but I'm pretty sure the Falcons are going to put it up even Jeff Olbricht's part, even though they say they're going to fine him 100,000. I'm pretty sure
They're gonna pay it
that's
all.
going to get some subsidized somehow, and it's going to be business as usual.
Nothing's
Unfortunately.
gonna happen to anybody except for the person that was wronged, and they expect him just to take it on the chin because the other
He's the
thing is
laughing
what
stock.
about
Yeah.
yeah, and what about last year it was Cooper DeJean or somebody who
Hmm.
got pranked, somebody else got pranked, and I was like, that sucks. And it did get attention at the time, should have gotten more, sure. But you have one of the most popular football players. Nobody's even talking about the number one picked, and he was a quarterback. Nobody's really even talking about him. But the biggest difference between these other people getting prank called is that the way the information was sourced.
Hmm.
That's the sticking point
Right.
of why it's even more of a news story. It was already a news story because everything that happened with Shadur, but it adds another layer, an actual serious layer, when you think about the data breach that happened and the whole scheme that was put into place for this to even to get where it is. So,
Mhm.
and it's like I said, sad thing is nothing's going to happen to this kid. He's going to keep going to college. They aren't going to kick him out. He's going to go
Mhm.
on to probably even get some sort of job
In the
with some
NFL,
NFL
he'll be a
team.
general manager in the NFL.
Yep. This is starting him in the pipeline to, they probably already started grooming him to get into this. So yeah, he already probably had it. He's 21, so he probably graduates this year. He probably already had a front office job lined up,
Mhm. Mhm.
and he's still
Mhm.
gonna get it.
He be
They're
all
not
right.
gonna stop him. Yep, he's gonna be fine.
Yeah, he be all right. All right,
Yeah.
so that's it for the culture. We're gonna move into the hookup, and if you need a tip, if you are concerned that people might try to hack you into your phone after it's been stolen, you might want to restrict control center access while the phone is locked. And let me explain why. For thieves, if they get your phone, the first thing they want to do is sever the connection between the phone, the owner, and Apple, the manufacturer. The best way they can do that is turn off the internet, turn off the
Mhm.
Wi-Fi, turn off Bluetooth, and
Mhm.
by extension, turn off Apple's location services that run in the background, even if the phone's turned off, even if the battery's dead, and even if the screen is locked. So, what they're trying to do is real quick, they want to disable, sever that connection so they can take their time and try to hack into the phone
Mhm.
before the authorities show up
Anybody wise.
or the owner shows up because they tracked it on Find My Phone, right? They're
Yeah.
trying to buy them some time. So the thieves want to sever that connection. The quickest way for them to do that is to turn on airplane mode. When you turn on airplane mode on your phone, it severs cellular, it severs Wi-Fi, it severs Bluetooth, and it severs Apple's location tracking service. The same stuff that's in the AirTags, right?
Mhm.
Um, the quickest way for them to do that is turn on airplane mode. The quickest way for them to turn on airplane mode is to get into your control center and tap the airplane mode button. So
Mhm.
my tip for the week is turn off control center access while the phone is locked. If you turn off control center access while the phone is locked, they can't swipe down to reveal the control center while the phone is locked. So how you do that is you go into settings, you go into Face ID and passcode, and then scroll down to under allow access when locked. You want to disable the control center. When you do that, the only way you can access the control center to turn on and off airplane mode is if the phone is unlocked. If you're typically locking the phone when you put it in your pocket or your purse, or it locks automatically after 1 minute, 5 minutes, whatever the case may be, after it's locked down, they can't get into your phone except for Face ID and for passcode. So they steal your phone. Now they got to work faster before you show up at their doorstep, like, hey, find my phone, said my phone is here. that buys them a little bit more time. So
Yeah.
that's my hookup for the week. To lock down your phone as much as possible. And I would suggest turning off control center while the phone is locked. So you can't access the control center and mess around with your phone until the phone is unlocked. All right. So that is my hookup for the week. And Nika, if you don't have anything else, that is going to do it for this week's show. Tell the folks where they can find you.
You can find me at Tech Savvy Diva everywhere.
All right. And you can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH. To learn more about the show, please go to our website, go to snobOS Cast. You can listen to the show there live. You can stream it. You can also download it to your favorite player. Again, like I said at the top, we're focusing on Spotify. We're focusing on YouTube. We're focusing on Apple Podcasts. But at the very least, get it wherever your podcast player of choice. We prefer you just listen, and then all the extra stuff is bonus. So please do the bonus stuff. And until next week, we are out. Peace.
Bye, everybody.